Hey, what's up guys? This is Hardy with NinjaEveryday, and I'm here with another NinjaEveryday ninja gear review. This time we're gonna review a knife from one of my favorite knife designers ever. My brother in the martial arts, Hakim Isler, has designed a knife called the Pathseeker. The Pathseeker is made and manufactured right here in the United States by the Double Star Corporation. The Pathseeker is a survival combat bushcraft knife, again designed by Hakim Isler, who is famous for his appearances on the show Naked and Afraid. And the second Naked and Afraid version, I think it was Naked and Afraid XL or something like that. But this knife was designed with Hakim's expertise in mind. It's got a Ferrocerium striker on it. It's got a 6-inch blade. It's about 11 inches, a little more than 11 inches overall. It's got a 1/4 inch thickness. So it's one of the thicker knives that I've ever held. It's a big hunk of metal. So it should be great for batoning and splitting stuff. So I'm here in the jungle on the Quest Tactical property. We're gonna put the knife through its paces. We're gonna see how it does. We'll start some fires, maybe do some little bushcraft tasks, and see how the Pathseeker, designed by Hakim Isler, made by Double Star, stands up to the tasks out in the woods. Stay tuned. All right, guys, this is the Pathseeker. The first thing that you'll probably notice is it's a super thick 1/4 inch blade. Again, you got about a 6-inch blade, about a foot long, a little bit under a foot, 11 and a piece. On the back, you've got this little edge designed to be a ferro rod striker. And then we've got these holes set up on the blade so you can run a piece of cord so that you can choke up on the blade or to keep it from slipping out, especially if you're chopping. You can keep a looser grip. We know that your hand can get fatigued when you're chopping. It's got a forward sweep on the blade, so it makes it a little front heavy, which should help carry it into the chops. And so what I want to check out today is I want to do some batoning with it. I want to see if it hits the spark rod the right way. Can I scrape down the fat wood or pitch wood the way that I like to do? How does it work with fine tasks like carving a feather stick? And then we're gonna do some chopping. We're gonna see if we can get through some bigger pieces of wood and see how it does. So stay tuned. So again, a super neat feature on this knife are these holes into the bottom of the handle, which obviously you can run a piece of 550 cord. You could lash it to something if you were trying to fashion a spear, but you know, being able to make a loop like this, like a hand guard, I bet this is really gonna help when I'm chopping and my hand gets tired and my grip gets fatigued. That's gonna be one of the first things that we check out. But just to show you how this works with a great piece of 550 cord. Obviously, I'm using my high-vis 550 cord. I'm a fan of high-vis stuff if you're not worried about staying hidden. And there is a high-vis version of the handle for this knife. You can get it in like a daylight yellow, which is something that you can see should you put the knife down. So it's available in a black handle and available in a high-visibility yellow handle. So the first test we're gonna do for the Pathseeker is seeing if it can chop up this big upper arm thickness size piece of old fallen pine. Should be like pitchy in the middle and super hard. So I've already put the 550 cord handle grip on it, and we're gonna see if we can chop this, and then we'll see if we can process it further. So let's check out this forward sweep on the blade and the chopping capability of the Pathseeker. So this is super tight grain, really pitchy, old pine, really hard. It looks soft on the outside, but really hard. And the Pathseeker went right through it. It's not as big a blade as my Tom Brown tracker, but I dare say it was as good a chopper, at least from my memory. And the thing that I love the most is this functionality, being able to put this paracord on it. Where I was chopping with my tracker, my knife would try to slide out of my hand and I had to keep readjusting my grip. I didn't have to adjust my grip at all on that, just because of this little loop that was super easy to put on it. So seemed like a minor feature to me when I thought about it, but that really enhances the functionality of this as a chopper. Really hard wood, no damage, no issues on the blade. Let's see if we can process it further. Let's check out how it batons. So a quick note, before we get to the batoning, I was gonna need a baton. So I went over to the side of the campsite and there was a standing live tree that's really small and not gonna get the growth that it needs, so we went ahead and took it down. But it's pretty thick, pretty dense, obviously still wet wood. Pathseeker went right through it. A couple of chops at the top and then a couple chops down at the base, and I've got a great baton. I knew I was gonna need something substantial to get through this piece of pitchwood that we just chopped with it, but this served as a great chopper coming down onto the dead wood. Also really well chopping in on the top on that green wood, which also leads me to believe that this has got enough forward weight, enough of a point, that this would be a highly effective sort of combat knife for combat applications. So really impressed with the chopping capability of the Pathseeker so far. Okay, so we know the Pathseeker is a great chopper, but to be an effective survival knife, you got to do more than chop and cut. It has to take the place of something like a hatchet or an axe. We know we can chop down trees like a hatchet, but can you split a piece of wood like you would with an axe? So we just had this big piece of pitch wood that I want to process in and see if we can use it. I'm going to try to baton it with the Pathseeker, using that standing piece of green wood that we cut down a second ago. Let's see how this does. So that was one of the hardest pieces of wood that I've ever batoned with a knife, because of the pitchy nature of this. Super hard, super sticky. The knife didn't want to go through at first, but once it got going, the thickness of the blade did a great job acting as a wedge and split it just fine. Really impressed, but I don't think a lesser knife, I don't think a thinner knife would have been able to process this piece that way. I'm gonna go ahead and process this down a little bit further. So if you recall that big upper arm thick piece of log, that pitchwood log that we chopped up, this is it processed down and broken down by the Pathseeker. When it was full thickness, the Pathseeker took a moment to get going, but the thickness of the blade of the knife acted as a wedge. Once I got that thing split in half, it had no issues at all. It went right through all of it, split it up and broke it down. So if we were camping out and had to get a fire going in rough weather or whatever, we got more than enough pitchwood, way too much actually. I'm processing this down so that I can do some stuff with it with some of our wilderness survival summer camps that'll be coming up. But again, this is the Pathseeker, and this big log of pitchwood, super tight grain, super sticky, hard to get through pitchwood, that it went right through like butter. This is the spine of the knife after the heavy batoning. This is the blade. Really did a great job. No dings, no nicks, no issues. Super impressed so far with the batoning and chopping functionality of the Pathseeker. So we've beat up and chopped with the Pathseeker, and it's performed flawlessly. And again, as a survival knife, it's got to function. It's got to do multiple things, right? So far, it's been a great hatchet and axe functionality, because you can baton with it and it chops, especially with the handguard that we had tied on. I went ahead and took that off just so it's not distracting, because again, this is how the knife comes when you buy it. It comes with a kydex sheath. Have that here on my belt. Nice kydex sheath. But in addition to chopping functionality and splitting functionality, you've got to be able to do the fine work that you want to do with a knife. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take one of these pieces of pitchwood that we split and see how well the Pathseeker carves like a feather stick. So I'm going to feather this out. You know that feather sticks kind of depend on the wood, but I've had pretty good luck with the pine pitch feather stick. So let's see how that looks. So once I found my line on the stick, I was getting pretty good feathers. So Pathseeker does a fine job, especially after all that batoning, catching the edge on this wood and helping me create a feather stick so that I could try catching a fire. So if I got a lighter, we've got a fire here pretty easily. So one functionality you want a survival type knife to have, especially if you're working in the eastern woodlands and you're using pitchwood or around pitchwood, is the ability to use the spine to scrape the pitchwood down. Can I scrape it into a fine dust that I could use to catch a spark or to help me ignite a fire if the weather's wet? So what I want to test is, can I use this ferro rod striker as a scraping tool on this pitchwood? Do I need to go up onto the spine a little bit higher? This knife does have this 90-degree spine, so can I use that spine to scrape it down? What sort of functionality does this have in terms of processing pitchwood into a dust that can catch a spark? So let's check that out. So the Ferro striker portion of the knife also does a great job scraping the pitchwood into something that we could use into a powder to catch the spark. So let's see if I can use the spark thrower on the back of the knife to catch this powder into a flame. I'm gonna use my Columbia River Spark and Sharp ferro rod and knife sharpening system. This thing I take with me all the time. It's very well used. So we'll see how this works. So guys, in review, this Pathseeker knife is awesome. I'm gonna give it 2 huge thumbs up as a piece of Ninja adventure gear. And to be honest, and not just because Hakim is my friend, a really good friend, but this is one of the like best designed survival knives I've ever held. The forward sweeping blade gives it an excellent chopping ability. The thickness, the 1/4 inch thickness of this steel makes it fantastic as a wedge for batoning and splitting. The edge of the knife was nice enough for me to make the feather sticks. There's a little place to put my thumb so that I'm not pressing into an uncomfortable spot. My hand never got tired, partially because of the super well designed way that you can make that hand guard with a piece of 550 cord. The spark rod did a good job, or the spark rod thrower did a great job throwing sparks. Really happy with that. And the blade didn't sustain any damage after all that abuse. So, Pathseeker knife, designed by my brother Hakim Isler, made by Double Star. If you're looking for a monster of a survival knife, super capable, super functional survival knife, check out the Pathseeker. I'll put a link in the description below. I really appreciate you watching. Stay tuned for more content like this. Remember, any time spent outdoors is time well spent. Ninja every day.